What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab. A little bit delayed this week. Got some crazy stuff going on. We're an Overwatch podcast about strategy inside of this game. It's getting a little bit crazy this week. Andres and I are back with another Strat Brewing episode. That means just us two on the mic. So, Andres, welcome back to yet another week.
Thank you. That's right. It's going to be a little intimate episode with Rob and Andres. We're going to get dirty with the strategy.
Nice and cozy.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Get a nice cup of Strat Brewing coffee and buckle up. This week, guys, we're going to be talking about Ultimate Economy. My name's Rob, and we're going to be talking a lot about this week. This is something that, to frame it for you, is a very, very, very common term in professional and in casual Overwatch that a lot of players should be aware of, and something that we've discussed in the past and a lot of times overlap with what we discuss at nauseum with regards to any form of strategy and heroes. Like this is something that people are always trying to get right. We wanted to help you guys break down some terms, help you improve in it. And Andres and I talked a lot actually yesterday. We were gonna do the show and both of us are just wiped out. So we decided to do a little bit more of a meeting, talk a little bit more of like how we want to approach this. We're gonna talk about it in like a 6-stack, kind of like solo queue, and maybe more of like a duo trio style where you have a couple people that you can bank on. And then we're going to use that in framing each of the sections that we're going to break down for you. But before we do, we have a little bit of an announcement that we need to blast through. So without further ado, I'll kind of back and forth with Andres here. But the first thing is that our game nights, as per usual, we want to make sure that we continue to announce them, but they are typically, again, on the last Friday of every month. So last Friday of June is the 29th on a Friday night. Friday night basically means anytime after supper, wherever you may be in the United States general time zones. So if you're missing out on this and you're looking for time zones, this is going to be easier for some of you than others, but kind of East Coast time zone. This is East Coast would be like EST or EDT now actually is EDT daylight time. This will be right around, anywhere between 2 to 4 p.m. that time. And then they go real late, like 3 a.m.
They've been going really late in the past few.
Yeah,
we have some troopers in there. They like playing Overwatch for a while.
I'm glad that they go so late because that's like early afternoon for me. I'm like,
yeah, so you actually get to enjoy
some lunch and come back home. People are still playing. I'm like, man, it's late for you guys. I just got some pizza. Let's go. But yeah, like it's a great time to get to know people, get to meet some folks that maybe are around your skill tier, play with people that are way outside of your skill bracket to learn, and just meet some new folks in the community. Additionally, we have some sponsors as per usual. Andres, do you want to cover our regular sponsor?
Absolutely.
Peeling.
We have Ben, aka I Need Peeling. As always, he's offering free business consulting in the esports field. If you're an aspiring coach, starting a team, developing an app or service, or just trying to boost your subscriber base, or just want to work in esports in general, you can visit his website at topscoresolutions.com, or you can find him on Twitter at topscoreesports. He also has a Discord server. It's pretty active. There's a lot of people working on this stuff all the time over there. Rob and I are part of it as well. It's pretty cool if you're just trying to get your feet wet and work with other people that are also very active and proactive in, improving.
Absolutely. We also have our buddy over at Omnic Meta Switch, or the Switch Fox, depending on where you find him, and whether it be on Twitter or on Discord. He is still continually doing his beta launch for the data stat tracking. That's a little bit like some of the tools that you're aware of out there, like Overbuff. It's a little bit more poignant and posed to help you focus on stats for improvement. a little bit lesser known, and try to narrowing down more specifics. You can do that in our Discord. You can also find his website at omnicbeta.com. He has let us know that he just returned from a nice vacation, and he will be working on cooking up some new stats for you guys in the near future. Hopefully, in the next couple weeks, we'll have something more news for you. Last up, we have Owl Recap is actually just got affiliate status. Hype. Congrats,
Woo!
Andres and Bob and Mel, for your affiliate status this week. You guys want to support them. They're on a different stream. They're not streaming on Omnic Lab anymore. Andres, do you know what the stream title is?
Yeah, it's Twitch TV/Owl Recap, OWL Recap. And yeah, we recently got affiliate. Thank you guys for everyone who showed up to the streams and supported us. We actually got it really fast this time. I was really impressed. Bob did a lot of work. He did a lot of streams. So if you want to watch some of our team practices or Bob going on the solo queue, I think he did a couple streams with that too. It's pretty fun. He's a fun guy to watch. He sometimes gets a little tilted, but he cools down.
That's the best part.
He cools down pretty fast and it brings it back together. We've actually been having some really good games with the team. He's been doing a tremendous job on Reinhardt. He's really taken that hero to heart, and he's improved so much in it. I'm really proud of you, Bob.
I'm looking forward to playing more with his Reinhardt. He doesn't really like it when I play Brigitte though, because I like to play really aggro.
Oh man, don't even get him started on Brigitte. He's very critical of Brigittas because he likes a good Brigitte by his side.
He really likes a very particular style of play. That's for sure. But
that is for sure.
congrats also to Bob for hitting Diamond this week. I know that was a big thing on his task list that he wanted to get back to after being on hiatus for so long and not being able to play Reinhardt. I know it was a big counter to that. But also special thanks to our new patrons that we got this week. We have Aiden C and Ginger Sasquatch. I have to say this right because I thought it was Sasquatch, but it was Sasquatch, like the plant. And these guys are both joining on the new Diamond sponsorship role. So thank you guys. Big welcome to the new patron team. You guys are great and helping us get to BlizzCon. Also special thanks to our returning Diamond sponsors. We have Ben K, Britmus, Krista Player, Durandal, Golden Soldier in the EU represent. And we also got Great Root Bear of the Five Deadly Venoms, Jan Jinkle, Jeff D, Lysum, Never Clutch, Ray, Roger B, Ricky Tiki, Shazir, Terry F, Top Score Solutions, and Tragic Zach. You guys have been heavy lifting for us for a long time. Really appreciate it. I know that I actually needed to buy a new SSD for my computer last month. And those things aren't cheap, by the way, because my hard drive failed and I had to move all of my Omnic Lab assets for the website, like thumbnails and my PSDs, and it was a big undertaking. And some of my assets for the stream that I had to make for Andres way back then, so that was not fun. But you guys have been really helpful. I know Andres is thankful as well to get us to BlizzCon, and I can't stress to you guys enough. If you want to go to patreon.com/OmnicLab to support us, it really is the best way to help us keep going, and make things happen.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Thank you guys for everything.
I think it's about that time that we get into the main topic, ultimate economy. So Andres, let's kick it off. We're going to talk right away about the first two things, what they are. That's what we're starting with. So what is ult economy and what is momentum? Those are like the two things that kind of go in tandem with one another.
Let's do it. We've talked about this topic before in the past. I feel like we've done more broad brushes before, and the game has evolved a lot. And not only that, but we have a lot of really good examples from Overwatch League in what it actually looks like to have a really good ult economy on your team. But like you said, let's first define ult economy. What do we mean by that? By ult economy, I mean the ability of your team to generate ultimates and then use them appropriately without being wasteful, or trying to be at the least wasteful as possible. You have to look at ultimates as a very valuable resource in your team. It's a diverse resource. Many of them serve different purposes, but all of them are incredibly powerful. And if you know how to use them appropriately, you can really push your team to the next level. One of the things that we've been working on the most in our own personal team, the Podcasters United team with Bob, with Deathblow and Mel, Kinder, Ja, is ult economy, being pretty good at managing them, and not only managing them, but being aware that we need to bring him online as quick as possible. And once we bring him online, finding a good way of spending him, a good order, trying to not overspend ultimates, right? Because there is such thing as too many ultimates. Sometimes you only need one, maybe two to get the job done. Most of the time, with the just one, is usually enough. Um, but sometimes you get into those team fights where all the ultimates start flying out. Three people in your team blow their ultimates. Four people in the enemy team blow their ultimates. It's a cluster of effects and particles flying everywhere, and hard to tell who's gonna win. But then the next fight, both teams might be depleted, or one team might be more depleted than the other unnecessarily. And that's the kind of thing that you want to avoid. Is something we've been working quite a bit, and is what we're gonna be talking about today. Is there anything you want to add here, Rob?
So ultimate economy is something that comes up, and some people may even wonder why do we use the word economy in a game that has no resources outside of ultimate charge, right? So the resource here that we're really discussing is the resource of momentum, and that's why we've kind of paired these together. In order to swing an individual fight and have momentum into the next one, you need to be spending your resources and winning things and not losing players. So in order to preserve people's lives, sometimes you have to commit bigger and stronger resources, such as an ultimate ability that you may not have every fight. And because you only have 6 of them at any given time at the most, you have to make sure that you have not only a way to spend them when you get them and not like be sitting on these valuable resources for too long, because you can't invest them. You can't like get another one
Right.
when you have it already. You have to use it and then get the next charge. That's why the ultimate economy is so valuable, because you always need to be building towards the next one while also simultaneously knowing which ones to use at that given time, and also how to use them in relationship to what your enemy team is doing and to counter their resources and do it more effectively by use of your play in combination with the resource itself.
And I'm
So that's just a
really,
different way to spin it. Is more
yeah,
is
yeah.
more or less what I'm trying
But
to
I'm
say.
really glad that you brought the word momentum up, because to me, the ultimates is what sets the pace of the game. It's kind of like the heartbeat or the backbone of any Overwatch game. Depending how fast you can get your ultimates, you can make a game go really fast. Or if you're taking a long time getting those ultimates and spending them, the game might feel really, really slow.
Mm.
And it's a game of economy, like you said. How fast can you build them and spend them effectively without being wasteful
Just
with
like
them?
Wall Street.
Yeah. Let's
Like day
talk.
trading. You heard it here first.
That's right. Let's talk about the initial phase of the alt economy, and it's what I like to call the dry push. When both teams come out right out of the gate, everyone's at zero charge, slowly building it. What do you do here? What's your main goal if you're thinking in terms of your alt economy? Um, the first thing that comes to mind, and something I've been trying to tell my team, is the dry push is a very strategic push. This is the push where you get a chance to maybe outplay your opponent using only your abilities, like what I call a fair game, right? You are only using your mechanical skill, your map awareness. You're trying to bait your opponent to maybe getting out of position and hoping to capitalize on that. Maybe you're using things like flanks to get behind their back line. Usually, any kills in this part of the push are either very skillful picks, like your Widowmaker gets a headshot, your Genji gets a dive, Tracer can get in behind. Maybe your Reinhardt is able to get a shockwave past the shield on an injured target and gets a pick. Some of them can be a little bit of luck. There's some sort of spam exchange going on. But basically, what you're looking for in the dry push is bidding for an opportunity, right? You're waiting for one of your teammates to be able to get a kill so that maybe you can move in at that point with an advantage and cap the point. But most of the time, that might not be enough, right? Most of the time, your main goal in this dry push is how can you build your resources as fast as possible? Sure, you're opening a space for your DPS to get those kills. Maybe your flanker is getting around to
Mm.
get him out of position. All these things need to happen. But what I've been trying to tell my team is be less all in that initial push. Like, don't be just let's go right and see what happens. Because usually that's kind of like the mentality of most people. Pick a side, either go right, go left, or go middle, and hope for the best, right? Hope that your spam can be better than their spam,
Mm.
or your
So
Widowmaker can be better.
so at this moment, I want to take a quick TO timeout
Sure.
and talk through basically the three goals of a dry push. How do you monitor if a push is dry or if it's not, right? So dry push means A, no ultimates. That's why it's called dry.
Correct.
It means no ultimates. It's not soaked with your filthy ults, okay? And B, it is used for the purpose of building them and gaining them. So it's dry because you're not spending, but you're gaining. Those are the two sides of the same coin. And third, you're doing so in order to take advantage of any opportunity that you find that you can jump on without using any of your abilities that are ultimate in nature. What I mean by that is if you get a 4v5 or a 5v6, no matter the scenario, you want to stay alive longer and do whatever you can better than the enemy team without using a resource, aka an
Exactly.
ultimate.
And this part is very important. I think that a lot of people just want to go in and see what happens, but what that means is that you are giving alt economy to your enemy. You are improving their economy because you're allowing them to do massive amounts of damage, maybe finish you off in that push, and now they're ahead of you. And as long as they're competent players, being ahead in the alt economy usually just gives you better chances of winning the game.
Especially if you can get the enemies to commit an ultimate when you don't have to in order to preserve their protection on defense, for example.
Mm-hmm. Basically, the idea of the dry push in here is you want to build your ults before the enemy team can. And that relies on a bunch of factors, right? The tanks actually can do a really great deal of ultimate building for their team in this phase. Your Reinhardt, your Orisa, your Zarya, they're heroes that are meant to take damage. They have huge health pools, and sure, they have ways of blocking that damage, but sometimes you don't have to block all of the damage, right? Sometimes allowing you to take some damage is the right move, but there's an art to taking damage as a tank. You can't just stand in the middle of nowhere, put your shield down, and pretend like they're not gonna destroy you immediately, right? There's just too many things that fly at you. So you have to be discreet in the way that you choose to do this. I think that sometimes not doing an all in, but like choosing to protect areas. So instead of saying just let's go right, you might say, guys, let's go to the top room with a big health pack and let's control that room. So you might go up there. You might not even try to push the point at this time. You're only trying to keep your team alive, put them in an advantageous position. Hopefully, the enemy team will make a mistake in one of these points, right? Somebody will get out of line or give turn around and not be facing your widow, and she can get a shot on them. Maybe your flanker can see an opening and get a kill in there. But this whole time, what your team should be thinking is we should try to preserve ourselves as much as possible and build our ults as much as possible. Heroes like Mercy, for example, can help quite a lot too. Damage boosting the hero that you want to get online first, like your Hanzo or your Zarya. You want that Graviton maybe. Can be huge, right? It can be a huge help in building that sort of thing. Or the same with your tanks taking damage, your healers healing them really fast can help them build their ults really, really fast. Amora ult, for example, can be a fantastic ult to push on the attack. Get your front line super beefy, get a lot of health and damage in, and you can build that really fast as long as your tanks are taking damage in moderate quantities that is healable and not like super, super risky, right?
Yeah, and you don't want to be you don't as a character like the more you go with your tanks, the more you learn to move around their pacing. But again, when you're playing in Overwatch, there's lots of different scenarios that you may find yourself in, whether you have a duo queue partner that can play a tank or you play solo with somebody who's really good at playing tank on your team that game, or you're playing in a 6-stack and you happen to have somebody that's super good on your team, or somebody that you just maybe is not great, but somebody you trust, and you kind of just learn together. Regardless of what it is, you got to find that scenario where you are, and you have to learn to trust yourself more than you trust your teammates in some scenarios, but you still need to learn how to play together. So even when you're making these decisions as a group and to dry push, for example, and move into a specific area, the best thing you can do in that scenario is just say yes and. It's like an improv technique, like for comedy. It's just a lot of things in team-based communication and team-based movement in Overwatch is the same. You just agree, even if it's the wrong decision. If like I've heard this 1,000 times in Deathblow, and I will preach this until the day I die in any team game. If you make the wrong decision together, it's still not as bad as making all different decisions.
Yeah.
So if you're going to make the wrong decision, at least you made it together and you're doing the same thing. So at least with regards to movement. And if somebody is doing something different than the team, as long as you've like communicated it or everyone's aware of it, that's fine. If you want to play Tracer and you don't want to move the team, it's not always wrong. You just need to let people know what's going on. And then when you move together as a team, let's say for the sake of example, we're moving on Anubis, we go up to the health pack room, we made the decision, and we finally realized, oh crap, 2 of these guys aren't in voice chat. They didn't A, hear the call, and B, they're definitely not with you right there. So you kind of like try to give them a little bit of lag time to see if they're going to join you, see what they're doing, monitor what they're doing, and then communicate with the team that is there to kind of adjust to their play. And again, adjust your own play accordingly. So we're trying to make sure that we're not going all in on one style of strategy, because end all be all, everyone's coordinated, everyone's playing together, but you know, utopia doesn't exist even in that scenario.
Right. Okay. And we're talking about, you're right. So far, we've been talking about like the ideal of what your team should be doing. But you're right. And a lot of people over here might be thinking, but Andres, that sounds like a dream. That sounds awesome.
5 DPS and a Mercy.
But yeah, when I go into comp, half of the chat is not in team chat. People are playing whatever they want. We don't even have a front line in this point. Like, what I do over here? And I feel your struggle. I solo queue as well. I felt the pain. But to be honest, even solo queuers sometimes have their moments of brilliance. It's not like everyone in solo queue is completely oblivious. You can still make certain plays. Sometimes communicating certain things on competitive solo queue can work too. Sometimes people do listen. It's a matter of being a little diplomatic, maybe just offering the option. Some people will take it, some people won't take it. You can't control everyone here, but a lot of the same rules still apply if you're going into solo queue with these concepts in mind, and that's how you're seeing the battle. It's gonna make you perform much better. And I think that in solo queue, sometimes individual performance can have a huge impact on the whole game itself. I know that in Overwatch is hard to carry, but if you're consistently playing well, if you're consistently building your ults well, staying with the right people to help them build the right ults well, in general, you will do good in the ladder, I think.
Right. And to get back on topic, again, Andres is doing a good job to kind of reel us back in off of this. But the ultimate economy is something that you can do whether or not you are even communicating with your words or with your typing on your keyboard or your little Xbox at addendum keyboard on the bottom of your controller. You can communicate by virtue of what you are doing, and you can also interpret what is happening and monitor how you use your ultimate by virtue of just watching the game, playing the game, understanding where people are doing certain things. But again, the more you play, the more communication happens, the better off you're going to be, just from simply being a support with another support of somebody you've never played with before and saying, look, if we're going to run, triple support, we got a Brigitte, we got a Lucio, and we got a Zenyatta, which I don't know why you would do this, but this works really well if you only have like one tank, for example.
It does. That's what we've been playing
really well. So if you're running these 3 supports and they're not like ideally going to work reactionary, you say, look, if we get in a hot and messy, then I'm going to use my ult first. I'm just letting you know because we both have it. Or you're at 90%, I'm at 97. just gonna let you know if they dive us, I'm gonna pop my ult so you don't have to worry about yours, and then we can move forward. You can use yours, and we'll move on. So just simple things like that, or even say, look, I'm gonna ult here, and you say 3, 2, 1. I know that I talked with my team. This is a highly coordinated, high masters, low grandmasters team that's trying to win open tournament. Okay, and telling these guys, look, if we're gonna play Sombra and we're gonna EMP. It doesn't matter if it is instinctually the absolute proper decision to go in there and EMP all of them. If you don't have the wherewithal to give your team at least I'm going to EMP 3, 2, 1 to give us at least 2 seconds to react, then we're not going to take advantage of it. And it's not even anything beyond a logistical issue because of communication is not there. So there are some plays that you may find as a skill ceiling to something that you may want to do. And I'm saying you're going to find those moments, but they're going to be few and far between because a lot of other things with regards to the ult economy. Let's keep going.
Yeah, well, let's add one more thing here. Let's making mistakes with your ults. And this is a good moment to talk about it because mistakes will be made. Q is going to be pressed at the wrong time many, many times, whether by you or your teammates. This happens at Grandmaster level. This happens in the Overwatch League with, professional
Fat
paid
fingers.
players. Like this happens
Quote, unquote.
all the time. And yeah, fat fingers or like literally a person that thinks that the ult might pay off at that moment and they press Q and it turns out that no, that was the wrong time. It didn't work out. It happens at all levels. So one thing I will say is when you want to strive to be using ults as best as you can, using ults well can really give you an edge and make you climb. But that being said, if it goes wrong, brush it off. Don't fret on it. Don't be the guy that starts raging on your teammates. It is a bummer.
Berating your teammates is never going to pay off.
No, it is a bummer when it happens. You spend time building that ultimate. You come to the moment of truth and it just falls flat. It's, the worst feeling ever.
D.Va eats your stinking graviton for the 3rd time. It happens.
For the 3rd time. Oh my God. I hope that is not happening, but yeah, that would hurt.
To go to the next game. You can't necessarily win them all, okay?
But yeah, it does happen. You pull out your blade and Widowmaker gets a headshot immediately on you, or Brigitte stuns you and you're dead. You deadeye and everyone focuses you immediately and you die before you can even finish high noon words. It happens all the time. You know what I mean? Just brush it off and move on. Thankfully, like you said, Rob, there's 6 ultimates in the game. And that brings me to my next topic, ultimate rotation. So we talk about the dried push. It's the moment where you want to be focusing on building the ult. You want to be spending all of your resources and helping your teammates do this. But once you get him, then how do you decide do you go with ults? Who do you choose to go first? In fact, can you even tell who goes first? And what I've found out with just playing with the team is that you can't really predict who's going to get your ultimate first. Sure, you can prioritize certain heroes and help them get the ultimate, but you just never know what's going to happen. It might be that your Reinhardt threw a shockwave and the enemy team aligned like planets and he went through all 6 of them and your Reinhardt went from 20% ult charge to 80% ult charge in like 2 seconds. That can happen. It could also be that the enemy team fed your Zarya a bunch of charge. She got a bunch of lob shots and that hit 3 people at the same time. She got an incredible amount of charge out of that. You never know. Your Tracer could have gotten her like pulse bomb in like 5 seconds because she went on a flank. It really depends on how the game is evolving and who just happened to like pop off at the right moments or who did it first. You just have to be on the lookout for that and learn to recognize that you will get some ultimates first than others. But as soon as you get them, you have to start building a plan around them. And before I keep going, anything you want to add here, Rob?
No, you got to know what your ults do. Got to know how your ults work with other people's abilities. Simple stuff, guys. Simple stuff sounds simple, but in execution and in a game where mechanics and execution are not always the same is really, really complex.
It
And
does.
you have to know what your team is trying to do. what people like to call the reason for their losses is like, well, this comp sucks. It's like, well, the comp sucks because we're using a lot of things in the wrong places, maybe, or maybe you're just running a lot of mismatched ultimates together and hoping something works. A lot of times I've found that if you're going to use a really mismatched comp and a bunch of solo cures mixing together, and the comp seems to be like, there's no way that we're going to pull this off. There's literally nothing that our can even nano boost where we get a benefit out of it. Then you got to start, racking your brain. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe you need to do something. Or the nth degree would be that, optimally speaking, you might be right, but in any stretch where the game is not at the highest level, then you can pretty much do what you like and you can still win the game. You just have to make sure you're monitoring the ults right and doing and playing properly.
Let's talk about an example of monitoring the ults. We've been playing with this very specific composition that's been working really good for us. And we actually have gotten pretty good at managing the ults and knowing when to use them most of the time. The composition is Reinhardt as the main tank. We have Mercy, Zenyatta, and Brigitte, so triple support that we're running. And then usually the last two are either a Hanzo or a Junkrat. Sometimes Deathblow will sub to a Pharah, and I'll usually be on a Widowmaker, a McCree, or a Reaper. So usually like all the hitscan guys depending on what we need. But it's basically...
And you can replace either of those with Zarya.
Yeah, and the DPS, the reason I mentioned so many is because that slot has been the biggest rotating slot. Usually the Zen, the Mercy, the Brigitte, and the Reinhardt are pretty set. We do change those every once in a while when we want to get creative, but that really is the core. And the DPS really is what type of damage do we need at that moment depending on the layout of the map. But basically, yeah, triple support, one tank, and 2 damage dealers depending what we need. And the ultimates so far are very purposeful. If we're defending, it really depends on who gets the ultimate first. So if Bob gets the ultimate first, he has Shatter. Then we usually try to put him around a corner where they can't really see him. We try to bait the enemy team to come around the corner and we shatter them. Or we'll try to win the shield battle for him. As soon as we know that he has Shatter, maybe all of our team gets a little bit more together. If we have some of the DPS spread out on the sides, we force them to come back, win that shield battle, and then have Bob shatter them immediately. So we start revolving around his shatter if he gets on the line first. We also, sometimes our Brigitte will swap into a Zarya if we want to go with the Hanzo Zarya combo. So obviously that's another big ultimate. Usually the shatter is like one pillar. The Zarya, Graviton, and Dragon is another pillar. So those are the 2 main ults that we use to move our team forward and gain momentum, and are usually the ones that we're trying to build as fast as possible to get things rolling, right? I'm usually on Widowmaker, which gives you the vision, and we've started using the vision very tactically. Whether to get a Graviton down or to get a Shatter down, it's huge if a Reinhardt can hide in a corner, but he can still see everyone who's coming in, because then he knows exactly when to come out. Same with Zarya. She can just wait around the corner and see exactly when they're coming in, and we can guarantee that those ultimates will land rather than just being more like pure luck. Maybe your Reinhardt comes around the corner like a second too early, and their Reinhardt is able to see him and put the shield up. So we've been using the Widowmaker as kind of like a guaranteed, and also to win the Widowmaker battle. If the other team has a Widowmaker, I usually wait for right before the battle is about to start. I activate Ultra Sight while all of our supports are hopefully hidden. We're still working on that one. But for the most part, they've been doing a really good job of just staying around the sight line until they're close enough. We activate Infrasight. We know exactly where the Widow is. They can play around it. I usually have an advantage in that fight at that point. So that's kind of how we use that ultimate. As far as the support ults go, Brigitte is almost instant use. As soon as that ultimate is online, we'll just pop it and everyone gets the armor. It makes our Zenyatta incredibly strong. It makes our DPS super strong too. That Widow battle becomes a lot easier when she can't outright, kill you with one shot, and you you can actually survive that. So that's pretty nice. So that one we just use on demand. Like as soon as it's on, let's go Brigitte. The Mercy and Zenyatta a little more nuanced. Zenyatta is one of those ultimates that we're always waiting to counter the enemy ultimates, and this is super important because there's only a few ultimates that can help you counter a ball of ultimates coming your way. Zenyatta is definitely one of them, and being able to survive a Graviton is huge. It can turn the title battle right there and bring the momentum from their side to your side. It's such a useful ultimate. Not to mention that the hero itself, it's a offensive menace. It's almost a DPS. And Mercy, of course, we've been using it actually to engage a lot of the battles on attack. We really like using it to just start the fight. If we know that we're about to hit each other, it's just easier to have your Mercy up in the sky. It's really hard to hit her. She only has to play around maybe like Widowmaker, and the damage boost plus the health is just amazing. Same with a defensive ult. If we don't have any ults, we don't have like Shatter, we don't have Graviton or Hanzo, none of those. Mercy ult can actually be a huge deterrent to a team fight. If you're trying to defend a point and the team is about to engage you, just popping Valkyrie and having her float above you, damage boosting you or healing the entire team can win you a battle just like a Graviton can, right? Your team just becomes really, really strong. And I've been talking a lot over here, so I'm gonna pass it to you, Rob. That's basically we've been playing, and that's kind of how we've been thinking about using ults. There's a few more things that we can touch on, like the pacing and everything else. But what do you think?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on another aspect of ultimate use, which is combinations outside of another ultimate. So a lot of what Andres has been saying is combining two ultimates or three ultimates together in order to do something, or using one or two ultimates in order to counter an enemy pair of ults. The most broad brush statements would be using Mercy's Valkyrie when she's not in a Graviton while the rest of your team gets graved. You also use the heal from that plus the heal from Transcendence to make sure your team doesn't wipe out from the dragon and the inevitable swinging of the Reinhardt hammer into the Graviton Surge. Because, as we all know, Zenyatta's ultimate, well, maybe we don't all know, but as I've been coming to find out, I am trying to find a different use for my Zenyatta ult in solo queue when there's always a Hanzo and always a Zarya ulting my whole team, and I use my Transcendence to no avail, because if you have a Reinhardt hitting you, and you have a dragon hitting you, and you have Transcendence going, you can't heal everybody through that. So
No.
it's really, really difficult. So I'm trying to figure out things of how can I make this ultimate useful. It doesn't always mean that the decision is wrong. It just means that your team can maybe do something with you, or you can do something with your Zenyatta in order to do that. And Andres and I were talking about this last night, where we were trying to theory craft a little bit on what can you do when you get Graviton and Dragoned and your team's still dying in the Transcendence. Well, like we said, you can potentially survive it depending on the Valkyrie timing and if the Mercy doesn't get caught in the grav. Second, you can also run an Ana and throw a grenade on your team when you get graved in order to both counter the enemy team and hit your own team and amplify the healing that you're getting from Transcendence. And the timing is everything on this one because of the totality of how long the dragon, the grav, and the Transcendence last, as well as the effect from the grenade. That being said, let's talk a little bit more offensively. What are some things that you can do? Well, for starters, you can start getting your storm arrows ready to go if you're playing Hanzo after a shatter, because you can fire a lot of arrows in quick succession with targets that are laying down on the ground, very easy for you to headshot. You can get into positions where you can do that. McCree, you can do the same thing. You can get ready to fan the hammer, roll and fan the hammer immediately and get rid of a support and a DPS, for example, because you have that much damage output when people aren't moving it after they have this thing going. Another thing that you can do is also what we call, we're going to get to in a little bit later, which is called funneling or zoning style of ultimates. where you zone or you move people into an area while you don't necessarily always kill them. This is very common in the current meta because Hanzos are getting ultimates about 2 to 3 times the same rate as our Zaryas are. So you're just throwing the ultimate somewhere and hopefully you get a kill. But generally speaking, it's kind of a funnel and pushing people towards an area. So what you could do is when the ultimate's fired or when something happens, you need to know what zone is getting currently cut off and where the enemy team is moving in relationship to it so that you can then pounce.
Yeah, and that's super valid
go ahead.
too. So far we've talked about using ults in their optimal way, right? In like the perfect situation, this is kind of what you will want to be using your ult for. But there's a lot of creative uses for ultimates that are actually really valid as well and can win you the point. Just like you said with the Hanzo ult. Sometimes with the team, Hanzo can build ult so fast that he'll have his ult, well, or Zarya is at like 30% of her ult charge or 40%, which usually means that if we can spin that dragon soon enough, he'll have another dragon by the time our Zarya gets her charge. And this is a bunch of factors depending on how the fight is going. Maybe your Hanzo is just able to get a lot of damage in because they're not necessarily paying too much attention to him, or he found a good flank where they're kind of like a little bit exposed. You never know. It can happen. But using your dragon before the Zarya ult is completely valid, and there's a lot of spots where it can cause a lot of damage. Like you said, if they're coming in a small corridor where there's not a lot of ways to get out of the way, your Hanzo ult can devastate over there. Or you can even use it, like you said, to block an escape route. If you know that if your team is close by and they're ready to push, you can throw your ult in a manner that it kind of like ambushes them. If they retreat,
They have to
they
fight in your space or they die.
Yeah,
they die in their current space and then you force them to fight in a different one.
Right. Even better if it's from both sides. If your team is threatening from one side, your ultimate is threatening from the other, you cut their escape route and now they're forced to engage your team at a disadvantage. Maybe you're even able to split them. Maybe you leave a half of the enemy team on one side of the dragon, half of the enemy team on the other side of the dragon. And if you think about it, it can act as a wall of some sorts. It cuts the visibility, and you definitely can't step through there or you'll just die. And that is super valid. It requires a little more nuanced play, right? You got to know the layout, like you said. You got to be aware of where the enemy team is standing. But thankfully, with Hanzo, you have many tools to do that sort of thing. You have Sonic Arrow to be able to scout out. You can climb walls, so that means you can usually position yourself in weird flanks pretty fast with Hanzo. So it's the type of hero that lends himself to creatively using his ult like that. But almost every hero can do this. And let's talk about some of the creative uses that you and I talked about yesterday. There's ultimates that are really awesome for stalling, for example. You don't necessarily have to end the team fight. You don't necessarily have to get any kills. Sometimes all you need to do is buy your team some time, and that is usually enough. Heroes that come to mind that can really do this is Winston, for example, with his monkey. He can not only stall, but he can also zone, which we'll get into that later. But it is enough to buy the team some time. If you just need to get to the payload, you can use your ult, get all your jumps. You usually have a huge health pool so that the enemy team can't just kill you immediately. You have a lot of mobility, so it usually allows you to dodge a lot of damage as long as you're smart about it. And it can really help you stall a point or a payload, or just allow your team that extra little time to get back and win the fight. Mei is another great example of this, forcing people to get frozen in place, blocking an area. Roadhog can also be really great. And I'm getting a little bit into area denial. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, for area denial, this is something that you're going to be able to see not just with a standard set of ultimates. Like with stalling, it's a little bit more specific because these heroes will have a kit that is also designed for stalling, not just the ultimate ability, although the ultimate ability continues to enhance that, like Mei's Blizzard slows things down in addition to what her whole kit does, which is like walling off and zoning areas and holding down the fort by going cryostasis into the ice block. Or Winston basically has the bubble to like block things in addition to jumping around. So
Mm-hmm.
the area denial then would be what we call zoning. So area denial can be in any kind of form that you can think of. It can be as simple as we need to cap the point, and I'm going to Winston ult in order to just push people off of the cart so that it will move. You also have things where you want to zone people off of a certain area. This is a very simple one where let's say you run a McCree and you're playing on Watchpoint Gibraltar. You can get to a high ground and you can use your ultimate where there's not anybody that's at range enough to deal with you, or you're behind a barrier, or you're really, really well hidden, where people are just like scattering like a bunch of cockroaches on an open light switch. They're running for the hills because they don't want to get shot. So what happens when you pop the ultimate is it just means anything in your LOS is going to run, or they're going to try to peek and kill you, and you punish them if you can. And so that type of zoning is basically saying this zone's mine and you're getting out of it. Or you're going to try to counter it and you're going to take that calculated risk.
Yeah.
So that's basically what these are doing. And the other ones are a little bit less intuitive, I would say, because Junkrats is actually what is a moving zone. If you use a rip tire anywhere, that thing means instant death to anything. So
And
you need to get out of the way.
Also, the psychological fear of hearing the tire
Right.
might make you just run and hide temporarily too.
Or go somewhere extra safe and just be watching, where is this thing coming from? I need to kill it. I need to kill it. I
Exactly.
need to kill it. And if it doesn't kill anything, it's wasted that much time where they're not on the cart pushing it on offense, or they are deep back and trying not to die and just well off of where the cart is because it's the easiest place to find people to kill them and the most obvious place for the tire to go if you want to kill it as a defender. And then furthermore, it's the same scenario with D.Va, except for D.Va's ultimate is no longer destructive. And you have to actually run for the hills. You can't be in even vicinity unless you're a Winston or something that can deploy a barrier. I know that a lot of Winstons have done these really funny GIFs that I've seen on Twitter where the Winston will dive onto the D.Va ult and drop his barrier and kill himself so that no one else dies, and it's a 5v5, and it's these heroic Winston plays. But sometimes that's not always the right decision either. You just want to be a hero, but your team goes 5v6 and the D.Va's got her mech back. That's not an ideal situation either.
Right.
So you have to make these risks and calculate, is this what we want to go with? Do I need a Graviton against this enemy team when the D.Va's mech is still active because she can still eat it? So these are scenarios where even not having an ultimate, you can zone an ultimate by basically existing. Genji deflect, D.Va's matrix. You know, these scenarios are really, really denying towards space and also towards engagement. So you have to think of what zone or what thing are you denying, because you can do any of those things with or without ultimates, and you need to know which ones you want to be aware of when you're trying to deploy yours or rather counter the enemies.
Yeah, and zoning or area denial and stalling with ultimates can be a super valid use of ultimates. Examples come like in overtime. If you're able to zone him out of the payload or the point for just a few seconds, you win right there. You don't even have to kill a single person. If
using Graviton Surge not to kill anybody, but just yank them off of the point.
Yeah, in Hanamura, that's, for example, something that they do. Or in 2CP maps where the entrances are so close, just sometimes firing your Graviton at the entrance so that nobody can come out of that entrance can win you a point right there. And you would say that's a bad grav, but it is not if you win the point, right?
Yeah, the game is all about winning the objective, not about killing the enemies. Although killing the enemies is sometimes synonymous with winning the objective.
There's some other uncommon uses too, kind of like the Zarya Grav. I've also seen people use the Graviton on walls that are adjacent to an abyss, so that people get pulled into the Graviton, and once the Graviton ends, you just fall down to the abyss. So again, you might not need a follow-up if you know what you're doing, if you can read the situation, and you can use your surroundings to your advantage. Another uncommon uses that I know that heroes can do is McCree, for example. Deadeye is a flexible DPS ultimate. Like obviously, you would just want to one-shot kill anyone in your sight. That's the funnest part. But it can be used
Mhm.
as an area denial pretty well. It can be used to stall. That's the same. Like if you just get him off the payload for a second, you can stop the push for just a split second. But you can also use it for things like reloading. A lot of the pros use this to be able to have 3 clips in less time that it takes you to have them by reloading normally. You can unload 6 shots, then roll, unload another 6 shots. Then you can just use your ultimate, cancel it immediately, and you have another 6 shots in almost no time for a total of 18 shots. And if you're hitting those shots, that's a lot of
And you
damage,
can
my
actually
man.
do this with Reaper now as well. You can get your third clip by use your full clip, then Wraith form and cancel it. You get a full clip again, then you use your Death Blossom, and then you get your full clip again. So you have all of these different things that you can have in your arsenal. And the other
Absolutely.
thing that I want to make sure we touch on, because we didn't talk about this yesterday and it just hit me, is the mental game of your ultimates. Not just denying and baiting, but maybe even playing McCree and solo ulting this guy that you just killed 3 times in order to tilt them off the face of the planet. This is something that you can do in solo queue in order to tilt people. And it's not necessarily a what you would call a bad manners play, but you know that this guy is literally just like berating all chat for the last 2 times, like, oh my gosh, this is so lucky and blah blah blah. And it's just like, well, it may not be the right decision for me to kill this particular person in every fight, at least first. But if I kill them, they're going to get angry and they're going to play worse over the course of the rest of the game. And so you can do certain things like this. And this is not a strategy that we're going to be advocating for our game nights, but it is something that you can do in your solo queues and your 6 stacks against enemy teams, against people that you don't know. And this is
Absolutely.
something that a lot of players have been, it's a controversial type of a topic, but nonetheless, it is something that is in the game that you can do and is not, a bannable thing in order to kill somebody. It doesn't. He killed me too many times. I'm gonna have Blizzard ban him. And that's not how it works.
I think that
But again,
he's
I
doing
wanted
his
to,
job.
yeah, exactly. I wanted to also highlight one really funny use that I saw besides just the reloading that I totally forgot about, which was when we had Chips on. He says you can just go play, Doomfist and go feed, and then use your ultimate, and then go ult somewhere on a mega health pack and get out. Because you feed your ultimate so much by hitting things and getting these instant one-shot style kill play style and getting in and getting out so often that you build ultimate. So that when you build your ultimate this quickly, sometimes the best use of your ultimate is escape. And Doomfist's ultimate is already really difficult to use properly for kills and setup if your team isn't setting up around it.
Mm-hmm.
So if your team's not setting up around for something, then you can use it to bail yourself out if that ultimate gives you the capability to do so. And another thing when I was talking with Fitzy, Andres and I were talking with Fitzy, I'll say, is that sometimes you use EMP in order to kill one thing. So noting that, especially in this current setup where armor is crazy, plenteous with Brigittes everywhere, knowing where the enemy Zen is and if the Zen exists, and switching to Sombra and getting your EMP, and you just kill Zen over and over and over and over. Your EMP basically means make the fight a 5v6 and they go down 1 support. And that means that you're at an advantage. So you have to know your ultimates and not just what the fun nuances are and like how the best case scenario are to use them, but maybe think more critically, like what is the best case scenario for this ultimate in this moment? Or how can I pull off this given how my team is currently playing? Because sometimes your team keeps getting grabbed over and over and over again, and you're playing Zenyatta, and you're like, I'm not going to trance this fight. I'm just going to use it to bail myself out because my team's just going to die anyways.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially with ultimates like that one, ultimates that you can get online pretty fast. The old Sombra would get her ultimate so fast that like using it as single Zen almost every fight was the way to go. Now you have to be a little more selective. Hopefully you can get more than one, but it's still a valid play, especially if you're building your ult really fast. There are heroes that can actually do this quite often, like Tracer, for example. Her pulse bombs, you don't need to throw the pulse bomb into a graviton and get a 6 double kill, right? You build your pulse bomb so fast that as long as you just take out their Zenyatta or their Mercy in the back, their McCree or soldier, if you're able to stick him, it's huge, right? It stops the push
Mm.
right on its tracks. If you can get for example, sometimes when I'm playing Farah and I got barrage up, I know it's so risky to just try to barrage in front of like three people and try to get those kills. You're more than likely gonna get killed. So sometimes what I've been doing with the barrage, especially if I don't have a Graviton or a Zarya to help me get those multiple kills, I'll just wait around above the sky in a corner or like above a door. And the second the Reinhardt pops in, I just unload just on him. And just taking out the main tank before the fight begins usually guarantees that you win the fight. Like the enemy team just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the pressure to like stay on the
Yeah.
point at that moment. So you don't have to like get a bunch of kills sometimes with your ultimate as long as you're using it to get one efficient and very purposeful kill. That can be enough to win you the battle. It might
Or
make the
bail you out
team,
of a 1v1 that you might be losing.
yeah, that
I've
too.
seen Ferris do that too.
Yeah. It in that one you really have to gauge the situation because winning the
Right.
1v1 is important only if your team is alive and contesting the point.
Right.
So you
Gotta
do,
influence all of your decisions by a lot of other factors.
yeah,
So that's what
there's
makes
a
this
lot of
topic super
variables
difficult.
into it, yeah. But yeah, even forcing the enemy team to just back out and having to wait for that one player can buy you like 30 seconds of time just out of that
Mm-hmm.
one
Mm-hmm.
ultimate, which 30 seconds in this game is a really long time, I think.
And that's
Um,
something that I'd like to highlight too, as far as building ultimates. This maybe is a little out of place, but with regards to using abilities such as the Discord Orb from Zenyatta or the damage boosting beam from Mercy, these two factors are not just building you ultimate, but they're building you ultimate faster. And if you are able to actually confirm the kill while these things are active, you're also giving and bequeathing some of your ultimate to the ally that is giving you that assist.
mhm.
And it helps them play better. It helps them realize that the targets they're hitting with their discords or their damage boost in that specific time is actually gaining them value. And we talked a lot about that, I think, when we had Deathy and Little Menace on with regards to like weaving in healing and damage boosting,
Right.
and Roshan Spy as well when we talked about Zenyatta. But yeah, I think that highlight is something that you want to be aware of. And there's also one other nuance again with Mercies that I've been talking a lot actually with our friend Icy Sorrow and Melarina. Like I got a couple buddies of mine that are really, really strong Mercy players that I've been talking to. And when Valkyrie is just about to finish and your enemy and your team is kind of like okay, and they don't necessarily have this critical need for healing, but they are low, not healing them is actually more advantageous in that moment, and just giving them a little bit of extra damage to finish out the fight is better, because then when the ultimate concludes, you can use your regular heal to slowly heal up your team in order to build back towards the next Valkyrie faster. So you have to know these little tiny nuances that sometimes will help you get ahead on your ultimate economy, so that you're not, even when you have to commit these resources, you can gain them back faster, even right after using them.
Yeah.
And a lot of Pharahs do this really well, because they'll fire off their ult and immediately they're going straight back up in the sky, and they're trying to hit more chip shot damage to get their ult back.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's the last thing I want to say to conclude kind of like this discussion. Ultimate economy is something that you have to have very present in your head. And hopefully, people in your team have this idea very present too. The name of the game is sure, you want to get kills, but you also want to be building those ults as fast as possible and using them and spending them appropriately as fast as possible. If you're able to get more ultimates in a game than the enemies, there's a high chance that you are winning that game. Of course, there also comes the point of you spending them wisely, using it at the right times. But I also see kind of like a Q anxiety on certain people. This is especially noticeable with characters like Zarya, for example. ultimates that are really big and your team kind of is relying or counting on you for those ultimates, sometimes it can give you like a little bit of anxiety and you just don't want to press it at the wrong time to the point where you might hold on to it for too long. Sometimes one of the things I've been trying to work with the team and letting them know is don't be afraid to ult, man. If you miss it and you fail, it's all good. We'll come back the next fight with the next ultimate, but it's more detrimental to the team if you don't take the chance and now we're stuck with the same graviton for 2 or 3 fights in a row where we could have maybe had 2 chances at graviton during that time, or same with any of the other ults. Zenyatta ult sometimes, for example, might be the only ult that we have. We want to contest the point at the last second, and even though you ideally want to save it for their graviton, sometimes that's the only thing you have to work with, and it might be your only chance to be able to contest that point at that last little bit. So it's like you might as well use it here. Don't save it for the next fight. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid of anything. Will help you build it as fast as possible after this, but just go ahead and spend it. If we decide as a team to do it, go ahead and do it. One last thing, try to do it before the enemy team too. This is an ult war, and whoever has the jump on the enemy team with ultimates will have the advantage. So again, don't hold on onto them for too long. If you've decided as a team that you're using it, that battle, make sure you try to use it as soon as possible after the battle starts, rather than that waiting a little too long and maybe your opponents get the chance to do it on you. So gaining them and the speed at which you do, the speed at which you spend them, and the speed at which you do it in the fights really matters a lot.
Something that you'll notice when you watch higher level of play, if you're some of your favorite streamers that play in Grandmaster, for example, these games, the kill death ratio on the players is still really good, generally speaking. But man, the elimination counts are ridiculous compared to your games in, silver, bronze, gold, platinum, even diamond. These guys are getting so many kills because they're able to master the ability of getting their ultimates faster and using them as soon as they get them, or in some cases. I mean, you see players like EQO in the Overwatch League where he's known for not always calculating his dragon blades, but when he gets them quick and he uses it and he puts that pressure on. And sometimes that pressure pays off. Other times it doesn't, but you never know until you
Right.
try.
Absolutely.
So you got to build them quick, know how to build them the best you can, and then get value out of them as soon as possible without committing the resource in such a way that you're spending more than the enemy team is spending. So it's a
Absolutely.
lot of this nice fine balance that we have within ult economy.
It's a lot of nuance. Like, don't be like the guy that just gets his ults and ults right away without even looking at the kill feed. It turns out that his team died like 3 seconds ago, and you just spend your
Be
ult,
aware.
and maybe you get
Right.
4 kills, then you die. But like, it didn't matter because the enemy team had enough time to regroup, and your team had no chance to follow up or even gain control of the point at that point. But that being said, you also don't want to be the guy that has had his ult for 2 or 3 fights. If you have lost the past 2 or 3 fights and you didn't spend your ult, chances are that you might be the reason why you didn't win those fights. Maybe you held on for it too long, your team got killed. Sometimes it does happen that your team is super scattered, so there is never a chance to like really use your ult effectively. That is a shame. It does happen in Overwatch. You gotta learn how to recognize that and hopefully rein back your team, even if it's a bunch of solo queuers. I think nobody likes being scattered, but it does happen. But regardless, pay close attention to that. If you're not spending your ults and your team keeps losing the fight, you might need to be a little bit more proactive because again, they're huge boosts to the ability of your team. And just having that at the beginning of the fight, being able to use your ults before your opponent increases your chances. So I don't know, it can be a way to help out your team.
when in doubt, better to have a plan than to go in blind. So if you don't know what to do, go into a character and play it with a buddy. Go in a duo queue, go in a trio queue, go play in a 6-stack. Play with somebody who knows that character, can help you out. Or play with somebody who knows how to play with that character, and when they'd like to have X or Y ultimate, then they can tell you this is the right situation to use it. If they don't know, you can go learn together. Overwatch is all about learning and improving and trial and error. And frankly, there's so many situations that you're going to find yourself in that we can't really give you specific examples and scenarios beyond what is possible. You always need to figure out what is right for you.
There's
in
a
the
million
moment.
scenarios.
There's a million of them.
And I'm glad
right
that you said
decision
that.
In a million, and one of them could be wrong in the next million. Like, you have to understand your capabilities, your team, enemy team, all of these factors. But I think that's good enough for the topic at hand, and we really need to close out the show. We have a couple more people to thank. We have our lovely people that are listening to us live on Twitch, and maybe some of you are catching us on YouTube. You guys can leave us a sub and a like on the video. Those help a lot. If you are on Twitch, you can actually sub to us as well. We are Twitch affiliates. In addition to the Owl Recap, believe it or not, you can give us a little bit of your Amazon Prime Twitch memberships if you have those and lying around. You just want to give one to us, that'd be great. It helps us out. And we also have some people on iTunes. We got Warhen117 and Aqua Punch giving us some 5-star iTunes reviews this week. And I'll just read one of them. We have, I'll read the first one. I'll have Andres read the other one.
Sounds good.
This one from May 26th. It says, hands down, the best podcast I've ever listened to. Has helped me learn a great deal about Overwatch and how to play better. Every new episode is a treat, and I can't wait to listen to the next one every week. You guys are great, and keep it up. Thank you so much. These are lots of kind words, and man, compliments are hard to take sometimes, let me tell you. I mean, you do believe in your product to a certain extent, but getting this level of praise is pretty high. So thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
I don't know about Rob, but I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad somebody's at least a little bit selfish here.
I like him. They warm my heart. We also got one from Aqua Punch from the USA as well. He says, I love to hear about the struggles of other players knowing I'm not alone. The guests they have and the advice for situations has definitely helped. Now I just need to find some people to play with on Xbox or super low on PC. Well, my friend, I got some good news for you. You come to the right place. If you join our Discord, we have a few people that play on the Xbox, and we have a lot of people that play on PC in all sorts of ranks. There's bronze, there's silver, there's gold, there's platinum, there's masters. We even got a few grandmasters in there. So there's a bunch of people to choose from. Join the Discord community. You'll find people to play with in no time.
For sure, if you want to find the show anywhere and everywhere, you want to go to the website. That is the main hub. You can find our website at omniclab.com, or if you want to find anything else that you're looking for, you can go to omniclab.com/links. You can find the Discord link. It's discord.me/omniclab. You can come hang out with us. You can come to the game nights. You can talk trash to your buddies in the Overwatch League Owl Recap channels about your team winning or losing. You can talk about the Shanghai Dragons. You can talk about whatever you want. But you can also do that and keep the conversation going in Twitter and Facebook. We actually have merch. We don't really talk about this too much, but guys, we got merch. If you guys like Omnic Lab a lot, you can go buy a t-shirt. You can go buy a hoodie. You can go buy a coffee mug. I use my coffee mug almost weekly when my wife's not stealing it for coffee. So you can do all these things. And our store link is on the website and right below where Andres and I are at on the stream, if you want to find that link there. If you're also curious about Andres's team, you can actually see him streaming sometimes on this channel on Omnic Lab on Twitch. And also Bob will stream regularly on Owl Recap, I believe.
That's
if you
correct.
want to check out his tank perspective. That's going to do it for the show. Andres, where can people find you?
If you personally want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And you can also find me discussing Overwatch League over at the Owl Recap. You can find it on Twitch. You can find it on iTunes. We do it with Bob and Mel. It's really fun talk about Overwatch League. So join us there as well.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter with the tag NotRob. You can also find me in the Discord pretty much anytime. You can ping me or Andres will likely respond within a couple hours at least. Me a little bit longer in different time zones, of course. But yeah, you can find me there. Also, I I'm delayed about 2 days because of just scheduling stuff, but we have a brand new episode with Cream Puff for Velen's Chosen this week, talking about 2 different hunter decks and toxicity within Hearthstone. Can you be toxic in a card game? Find out this week or the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. You can go find that on velenschosen.com. And we'll see you guys next week. And remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. Next week, guys, spoiler alert, going deep Zarya with Can Asian, top Zarya player on the ladder.
Looking forward to that. Thanks for everyone in the chat. We have a few folks over here today.
We spiked around 17 this week.
Thanks for coming, guys. You always make it very nice.
Hi, Bob.